March 15, 2003, Hong Kong's Shaw Brothers Studio, Stage 7. Derek Stone had just called Victor Chen a has-been chink in front of 300 crew members. The cameras kept rolling. Victor's hands shook as he watched his 20-year career crumble in real time. Derek refused to perform the stunt sequence Victor had choreographed for 6 months. The American actor demanded double his salary or he'd walk. The phone screen glowed in Marcus's weathered hands, casting harsh shadows across his face as the video played. 20-year-old footage, grainy but unmistakable. Tyler Wade stumbling out of a silver Mercedes, blood on the bumper. Panic in his eyes as he surveyed the crumpled body of Li Wei sprawling across the rain-slicked Kowloon Street. "Turn that off." Wade's voice cracked, his million-dollar confidence evaporating like steam. "Turn that fucking thing off." But Marcus kept the phone raised high, angling it so the entire crew could see. The boom operator leaned closer. The script supervisor's mouth fell open. Even the catering team had stopped serving lunch to witness the 20-year reckoning unfolding in real time. "This is what your golden boy did in Hong Kong," Marcus announced, his Cantonese accent thickening with rage. July 12, 1999. Outside Club Babylon in Sim Shat Sui. He was supposed to be filming reshoots for Dragon's Gate, but instead he was drinking, driving, killing innocent girls. Jackie Chan stepped forward, his weathered face grave. "Marcus, what is this?" "Justice. Jackie. Something I should have served 20 years ago." On the phone screen, young Tyler Wade was dragging Li Wei's broken body to the sidewalk, checking for witnesses, then speeding away into the Hong Kong night. Marcus had been on the rooftop of the building across the street, testing camera angles for an upcoming chase sequence. He'd captured everything through his telephoto lens, the impact, the panic, the cover-up. The next morning, Wade had flown back to Los Angeles. Li Wei's death was ruled a hit and run by an unknown driver. The case went cold. Wade's career skyrocketed. "You kept this for 20 years?" Tyler's voice was barely a whisper now. The cocky American action star who'd been mocking Marcus's modest salary 5 minutes ago looked like he might vomit. "Why didn't you? What do you want?" Marcus pocketed the phone, savoring the moment. "What do I want? I want you to remember this feeling, Tyler. The feeling of being small, powerless, humiliated in front of people who used to respect you." The set had fallen into complete silence. 30 crew members stood frozen, processing what they'd just witnessed. The revelation that one of Hollywood's biggest action stars was a killer. The realization that quiet, unassuming Marcus Chen, the broken-down stunt coordinator they'd been treating like invisible furniture, held the power to destroy a career worth hundreds of millions. Jackie Chan's face was stone. "Marcus, we need to talk. Privately. No more private conversations, Jackie. I've kept this private for 2 decades, while Tyler here built his empire on a dead girl's bones, while I lost everything." Marcus's voice rose, 20 years of suppressed fury finally breaking free. "You want to know why I'm just an assistant director now? Why the great Marcus Chen coordinates stunts for C-grade horror movies instead of working with the best? Because I had a conscience. Because I kept my mouth shut instead of doing what was right." He turned to face Tyler directly, stepping close enough to smell the fear sweat beginning to bead on the actor's forehead. "But conscience doesn't pay for cancer treatments, does it, Tyler? Conscience doesn't cover experimental therapies that could save my wife's life. Conscience is a luxury I can no longer afford." Tyler's hands were shaking now. "How much? How much do you want?" "It's not about money anymore." Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried across the entire soundstage. "It's about consequences. It's about the fact that you called me a washed-up has-been who should be grateful for scraps when you're nothing but a murderer who got lucky." The weight of the moment settled over the set like a heavy blanket. Someone's walkie-talkie crackled with static, a phone buzzed, but nobody moved. Marcus pulled out his phone again, thumb hovering over the screen. Li Wei was 17 years old, Tyler, an art student at Hong Kong University. She was walking home from her job at a bookstore when you ran her down. Her father spent years looking for her killer. Something flickered in Tyler's eyes. Recognition, terror, or both. "That's right," Marcus continued. You remember now, don't you? Li Wei, daughter of Li Zhao Ming. You know that name, Tyler? You should. He runs half the shipping containers in and out of Hong Kong. Not the kind of man who forgets. Not the kind of man who forgives. Tyler's face had gone completely white. Marcus, please, you don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly. Marcus smiled for the first time in months. A cold, predatory expression that transformed his face into something almost unrecognizable. I'm doing what I should have done 20 years ago. I'm telling the truth. He raised the phone again, finger poised over the upload button that would send the video to every major news outlet simultaneously. Goodbye, Tyler. Enjoy explaining this to your fans. The upload button glowed beneath Marcus's thumb like a digital guillotine. One press, one touch, and Tyler Wade's world would shatter across every screen in the world within minutes. But Marcus didn't press it. Not yet. Instead, he let his finger hover there, savoring the exquisite terror painted across Tyler's face. 20 years of suppressed rage had found its target, and Marcus wanted to memorize every second of the actor's destruction. The way Tyler's bronzed Hollywood tan had turned sallow, the way his hands trembled despite his desperate attempts to appear calm, the way his million-dollar smile had collapsed into something small and pleading. Please, Tyler whispered, the word barely audible above the industrial hum of the soundstage lights. My kids, my wife. Think about what this will do to them. Marcus's thumb twitched. For a split second, something human flickered in his expression, a ghost of the man he'd been before grief and guilt had hollowed him out. But then he thought of Elena. Elena, lying in their cramped Burnaby apartment right now, probably sleeping off another round of chemotherapy that they couldn't afford. Elena, whose insurance had been canceled when Marcus lost his union membership after the accident. Elena, who'd stopped talking about Christmas plans because they both knew she might not live to see them. Your wife? Marcus's voice carried a bitter laugh. Your wife lives in a Beverly Hills mansion. Your wife wears jewelry that costs more than most people's houses. Your wife has never had to choose between cancer treatments and rent. He took a step closer to Tyler, and the actor actually flinched. The same man who'd performed death-defying stunts on 50 action movies was terrified of a broken-down 58-year-old film crew worker. My wife, Marcus continued, his voice dropping to that deadly whisper again, is dying because I can't afford to save her, because I lost everything protecting a secret that was never mine to keep. The crew remained frozen, a tableau of shocked faces and gaping mouths. Someone's coffee had grown cold in their hands. A camera operator still had his eye pressed to the viewfinder, as if he could hide from this moment by pretending to work. Jackie Chan stepped forward, his movements careful and deliberate. Marcus, brother, let's think about this. There might be another way. Another way? Marcus turned to face his old friend, and Jackie actually stepped back at the fury in his eyes. For 20 years I've been thinking about another way. For 20 years, I've watched Tyler Wade become one of the biggest stars in the world, while Li Wei rotted in her grave, while her father wondered why his daughter never came home, while I carried this poison inside me like a tumor. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message, and his expression softened for just a moment as he glanced at the screen. Elena, checking in from her hospital bed, how's your day going? Try to smile for me. The simple message hit him like a physical blow. Here he was, finally holding the power to destroy the man who'd haunted his conscience for 2 decades, and Elena was asking him to smile. Elena, who'd never asked for anything except his love. Elena, who'd never blamed him for the accident that destroyed their future. Elena, who still told people she was proud to be married to Marcus Chen, even when he couldn't be proud of himself. Tyler must have seen something in Marcus's expression change, because hope flickered in his eyes. Marcus, listen to me. We can work this out. I can help your wife. The best doctors, the best treatments. Money is no object. Money is no object, Marcus repeated slowly, tasting the words. Do you know how many nights I've lain awake doing math? Calculating how many years I'd need to work to afford one experimental treatment. How many more C-grade movies I'd need to coordinate to buy Elena one more month. He looked around the soundstage, taking in the elaborate set Jackie's crew had built. Millions of dollars in equipment, costumes that cost more than Marcus made in a year, special effects that could create any reality imaginable. All of it felt suddenly hollow, like a beautiful lie constructed to distract from uglier truths. "But you're right about one thing," Marcus said, turning back to Tyler. "This isn't about money anymore. It never was." His thumb moved closer to the upload button, close enough that Tyler actually reached out as if to stop him. "It's about the fact that Li Wei never got to finish her art degree, never got married, never had children, never got to grow old. Because you were too drunk to call a taxi." The soundstage door creaked open behind them, and Marcus heard footsteps approaching, probably more executives, come to contain whatever crisis was unfolding on their expensive set. But Marcus didn't turn around. He kept his eyes locked on Tyler Wade, memorizing this moment of perfect justice. 20 years of silence, about to end with the press of a button. "Marcus." The voice from behind him was soft, accented with the familiar cadence of Hong Kong Cantonese. But it wasn't an executive approaching. It wasn't Jackie's assistant director or a panicked studio lawyer rushing to contain the crisis. Marcus's thumb froze over the upload button. His entire body went rigid as if he'd been struck by lightning, because that voice, that particular inflection, that way of pronouncing his name like a prayer and a curse combined, belonged to someone who shouldn't exist anymore, someone who'd been buried 20 years ago along with Li Wei. "Turn around, Marcus. Please." The soundstage fell into an even deeper silence, if such a thing were possible. Tyler Wade's terrified breathing sounded like a freight train in the stillness. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears, drowning out everything except that impossible voice. Slowly, as if moving through molasses, Marcus turned. Li Xiaoming stood 15 feet away, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits who radiated the quiet menace of professional bodyguards. But Marcus barely registered them. His entire focus was consumed by the man himself, older, grayer, but unmistakably the shipping magnate who'd haunted Marcus's nightmares for 2 decades. The father who'd buried his 17-year-old daughter without ever knowing why she'd died. "Hello, old friend," Li Xiaoming said, his voice carrying the weight of 20 years of grief. "I believe we have much to discuss." Marcus's phone slipped from his suddenly nerveless fingers, clattering to the concrete floor. The video of Tyler Wade's crime disappeared into a spiderweb of cracked glass, taking with it 20 years of carefully preserved evidence. "How?" Marcus's voice cracked. He tried again. "How are you here?" Li Xiaoming's smile held no warmth, only the terrible patience of a man who'd spent decades waiting for this moment. "Did you think technology stopped advancing in Hong Kong after you left? Facial recognition software, cell phone tracking, security cameras on every street corner now." He gestured toward Marcus's broken phone. "The moment you uploaded that video to the cloud storage 3 days ago to prepare for today's performance, my people were notified." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. 3 days ago? We've been watching you, Marcus. Watching and waiting. When a man carries evidence of my daughter's murder for 20 years, eventually he becomes visible to those who know how to look. Tyler Wade had backed against a fake brick wall, his face cycling through confusion, terror, and dawning realization. Who is this guy? Marcus, what the hell is going on? Li Xiaoming's attention shifted to Tyler like a predator noticing prey. Ah, Mr. Tyler Wade, the famous American action star. His English was perfect, cultured, with only the faintest trace of an accent. The man who murdered my daughter and fled like a coward. Tyler's legs gave out. He slumped against the wall, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. "Yes," Li Xiaoming continued, his voice gentle as silk over steel. "I know exactly who you are. I've known for 20 years. What I didn't know was whether anyone else possessed proof of what you did, whether anyone else cared enough about justice to help a grieving father find closure." Marcus's mind raced, trying to process the implications. "If you knew, why didn't you kill him?" Li Xiaoming's laugh was like breaking glass. "Oh, Marcus, you think so simply. Death is easy, death is quick. But justice—" He paused, savoring the word. "Justice requires patience, planning, the perfect moment when all debts come due at once." He walked closer to Marcus, his movements predatory and controlled. "Do you know what the hardest part has been? Not killing Tyler Wade. That would have been simple. The hardest part has been waiting to see if you were a man of honor or a man of cowardice. Whether you would eventually do the right thing, or whether you would take my daughter's killer to your grave. Marcus's hands were shaking now. I kept the evidence safe. I never destroyed it. But you never used it either. For 20 years, you let my daughter's murderer live free while you carried the burden alone. Tell me, Marcus, was that nobility or selfishness? The question hit like a physical blow. Marcus had told himself for 2 decades that his silence was protecting Tyler's family, protecting the industry, protecting himself. But standing here now, facing the hollow-eyed grief of a father who'd never known peace, Marcus saw his choices through different eyes. I was a coward, he whispered. Yes, Li Xiaoming agreed. You were. But today you chose differently. Today you chose justice, even if it was 20 years too late. Behind them, Jackie Chan finally found his voice. This is a movie set. Whatever this is about, take it somewhere else. Li Xiaoming didn't turn around. His gaze remained fixed on Marcus, measuring, evaluating. Oh, but this is exactly where it needs to happen. In front of cameras, in front of witnesses. Some stories deserve an audience. Marcus realized with growing horror that this moment, this confrontation, wasn't an accident. Li Xiaoming hadn't simply tracked him down. He'd orchestrated this entire encounter, waited for Marcus to make his move against Tyler, then stepped in at the perfect moment to seize control. The game had changed completely. Marcus was no longer the predator holding Tyler's fate in his hands. He was prey, caught between his past and a future he couldn't control. Marcus's mind scrambled for purchase, like fingers clawing at smooth ice. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Li Xiaoming was supposed to be an abstract threat, a distant consequence that Tyler Wade would have to face someday in some other place. Not here, not now. Not standing 15 feet away with the quiet authority of a man who owned pieces of the world that didn't appear on any map. This is insane, Marcus whispered, backing away from Li Xiaoming's calculating stare. You can't just... This is a film set. There are protocols, union regulations. Even as the words left his mouth, Marcus knew how pathetic they sounded. Union regulations against triad justice. Protocols against 20-year-old vengeance. He was grasping at the remnants of a normal world that had evaporated the moment he'd decided to destroy Tyler Wade. Li Xiaoming's bodyguards shifted almost imperceptibly, and suddenly every exit felt blocked. Marcus noticed how the crew members were edging away, their faces carefully blank. Not confused, blank, the kind of deliberate non-expression that people wore when they recognized danger and wanted no part of remembering it later. Jackie, Marcus said, turning toward his old friend with desperate hope. Jackie, you need to call security. Get these people off your set. But Jackie Chan's weathered face had gone carefully neutral, the same mask Marcus had seen him wear during tense negotiations with studio executives. Professional, diplomatic, uninvolved. Maybe we should all take a break, Jackie said quietly. Clear the set. Let people talk. Clear the set? Marcus's voice cracked. Jackie, what are you doing? These men just threatened... These men haven't threatened anyone, Jackie interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. Mr. Lee is simply here to discuss a personal matter. Sometimes old business needs to be settled before new business can proceed. The words hit Marcus like ice water. Jackie knew. Somehow, Jackie Chan, Hong Kong's most beloved action star, the man Marcus had considered a friend for over a decade, knew exactly who Li Xiaoming was. And more than that, Jackie was choosing sides. You all know, Marcus said, his gaze sweeping the crew. You all fucking know who he is. Silence. 30 film industry professionals suddenly found their shoes fascinating. Camera operators studied their equipment. Lighting technicians discovered urgent problems with their rigs that required immediate attention. Tyler Wade was still slumped against the fake wall, but his expression had shifted from terror to something else. Calculation, maybe. Or recognition. Wait, Tyler said slowly. Li Xiaoming, the shipping guy. We met at the Hong Kong Film Festival in 2018. You sponsored that charity auction. Li Xiaoming's smile was arctic. I sponsor many charitable causes, Mr. Wade. Orphanages mostly. I have a particular interest in helping children who've lost their parents to tragic accidents. The temperature in the soundstage seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus watched Tyler's face cycle through confusion, memory, and dawning horror as the implications sank in. "You knew," Tyler whispered. "All this time you knew." "Of course I knew. A father never stops looking for his daughter's killer. The question isn't what I knew, it's what I chose to do with that knowledge." Marcus tried to back toward the exit, but found one of Li Jiaoming's men had materialized there, hands folded politely in front of him like a hotel concierge. Not blocking the door exactly, just standing, waiting. "This is kidnapping," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "False imprisonment." "You're free to leave any time you wish," Li Jiaoming replied, "but we both know you won't, because despite your 20 years of cowardice, you're still the same man who spent 3 days positioning cameras to get the perfect shot. You need to see how this story ends." Marcus's phone buzzed from the floor where it had fallen, the cracked screen somehow still functional. "Elena again, the nurse says I can come home tomorrow if you want to pick me up. Miss you." The text was like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. Elena. Home. The world beyond this soundstage where normal problems existed. Cancer and money, and whether the insurance would cover another round of treatment. Problems that suddenly seemed simple and manageable compared to standing between a triad boss and the man who'd killed his daughter. "I need to go," Marcus said, stepping toward his broken phone. "My wife, she's in the hospital. She needs—" "Elena Chen," Li Jiaoming said softly. "Lung cancer, stage 3. Currently receiving treatment at BC Cancer Vancouver. Prognosis uncertain due to limited access to experimental therapies." Marcus froze. "How do you know that?" "I know everything about you, Marcus. Everything about the accident that destroyed your career. Everything about your financial struggles. Everything about the woman you love who's dying while you carry my daughter's killer's secrets." The walls seemed to be closing in. This wasn't justice anymore. This wasn't even revenge. This was something else entirely. A game whose rules Marcus had never learned, played by men who moved pieces across boards he couldn't see. And somewhere in this maze of consequences and calculations, Elena was waiting for him to come home. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Marcus could feel his heartbeat in his throat, each pulse marking another second that Elena waited for his call, another moment that he was trapped in this nightmare of his own making. "You want to know the real tragedy, Marcus?" Li Jiaoming's voice carried the weight of ocean depths. "It's not that you kept my daughter's killer's secret for 20 years. It's that you convinced yourself you were protecting people." Marcus tried to speak, but Li Jiaoming continued, circling him now like a shark sensing blood. "Tyler's wife and children. Innocent, you told yourself. The film industry. Too many jobs at stake. Your own career. Understandable self-preservation. Such noble justifications for cowardice." "It wasn't cowardice," Marcus said. But the words felt hollow even to him. "No?" Li Jiaoming stopped directly in front of him. "Then tell me about the others." The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. His face went white. "What others? Did you think Li Wei was Tyler's only victim? Did you imagine that a man who drives drunk through Hong Kong in 2003 suddenly develops a conscience afterward?" Tyler Wade pushed himself off the wall, his face flushed with desperate anger. After that night, I stopped drinking. I got help. I changed." Li Jiaoming's laugh was like breaking bone. "You changed? How wonderful. Tell that to the Henderson family in Los Angeles, 2007. Tell that to Maria Santos in Mexico City, 2012. Tell that to—" "Stop." Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "Just stop." But Li Jiaoming pressed forward, his words surgical in their precision. "You see, Marcus, while you were protecting Tyler's secret, Tyler was creating new secrets, new victims, new grieving families who will never know why their loved ones didn't come home." The soundstage tilted around Marcus. He grabbed a nearby equipment cart for support, his knuckles white against the metal. 20 years of carrying one death on his conscience, and now— "You're lying," Tyler said, but his voice cracked. "Those were accidents. That thing in Mexico," the investigators said. "The investigators said whatever you paid them to say, just like in Hong Kong, just like always. Li Xiaoming's voice never rose above conversational level, but each word landed like a hammer blow. Money has such a wonderful way of rewriting history, doesn't it? Marcus felt something breaking apart inside his chest. Not his heart, something deeper. The careful architecture of justification he'd built around his silence, the elaborate framework of excuses that had allowed him to sleep at night. All of it crumbling under the weight of names he'd never heard, faces he'd never seen. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I couldn't have known." "But you suspected, didn't you?" Li Xiaoming's eyes were black holes, pulling truth from Marcus like gravity. Every time you saw Tyler on a magazine cover, every time he won an award, every interview where he talked about his charity work, his family values, his commitment to safety on film sets, you felt something crawling in your stomach, didn't you? Marcus closed his eyes, but that only made it worse. Behind his eyelids, he could see Elena's face from this morning, pale and drawn but still smiling as the ambulance took her to the hospital. Still believing that her husband was a good man who'd made one difficult choice to protect innocent people. The Henderson girl was 16, Li Xiaoming continued relentlessly. Walking home from her part-time job at a bookstore, Tyler was leaving a wrap party for that superhero movie. You remember, the one that made $800 million worldwide. He'd promised his wife he'd take a car service, but his ego couldn't handle arriving at his own hotel in anything less than a Maserati. "Please," Marcus begged, "don't." Maria Santos was a mother of 3, schoolteacher. She was picking up prescription medicine for her youngest daughter's asthma when Tyler ran that red light in Mexico City. The daughter died 2 days later, couldn't breathe without her inhaler, couldn't get to the hospital without her mother. Tyler had sunk to his knees now, his carefully maintained action hero facade completely shattered, but Marcus couldn't spare him any sympathy. All his horror was reserved for the mirror Li Xiaoming was holding up to his own choices. How many? Marcus's voice was barely audible. How many others? 7 confirmed, 3 more probables, all of them covered up, all of them buried under legal settlements and non-disclosure agreements. Li Xiaoming crouched down so he was eye level with Marcus. All of them preventable, if one man had possessed the courage to speak truth 20 years ago. The weight of it crushed down on Marcus like a physical force. 7 lives, 7 families, 7 sets of futures erased because he'd chosen silence over justice. His phone buzzed again. "Elena, the sunset from my window is beautiful tonight. Wish you were here to see it with me." The text felt like a knife in his heart. Beautiful sunsets and dying wives and blood-soaked secrets. How did they all exist in the same world? Marcus stared at the cracked phone screen, Elena's words blurring through his tears. Beautiful sunsets, 7 dead innocents, his wife's faith in him, Tyler's cascade of covered-up murders. How did any of it fit together? "There's something else," Li Xiaoming said quietly, and something in his tone made Marcus look up from the phone. The triad boss was studying him with an expression that wasn't quite sympathy, but wasn't cruelty either. "Something about that night in Hong Kong. Something you never knew." "I know everything about that night," Marcus said hoarsely. "I saw it happen. I filmed it. I watched your daughter die." "You watched Li Wei die, yes, but you never wondered why she was there. Why my 17-year-old daughter was walking alone in Central at 2 in the morning." The question hit Marcus like cold water. In 20 years of replaying that night, of carrying the guilt and the secret, he'd never questioned the circumstances. Li Wei had been there, Tyler had been drunk, the collision had happened. The why had seemed irrelevant compared to the crushing weight of what. "She was meeting someone," Li Xiaoming continued. "Someone who'd promised to help her with a school project about the film industry. Someone who'd arranged to meet her after his rap party, when the streets would be quieter." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. No, a famous American actor who'd noticed her during a set visit earlier that week, who'd been charming and friendly, who'd made her feel special, who'd suggested they meet privately to discuss her future in cinema. Tyler Wade's head snapped up from where he knelt on the concrete floor. "That's not, I never—" "You texted her from the party," Li Xiaoming said, pulling out his own phone with surgical precision. "Called her when you left. Told her you were running late because of traffic, that she should wait at the corner where you killed her 3 minutes later." The soundstage had gone completely silent. Even the ambient hum of air conditioning seemed to have stopped, as if the building itself was holding its breath. Marcus felt reality shifting around him like tectonic plates. The image he'd carried for 20 years, of random tragedy, of wrong place and wrong time, cracked and reformed into something infinitely darker. Not an accident. A predator's appointment, ending in murder. She was waiting for her killer, Marcus whispered. She was waiting for her killer, Li Xiaoming confirmed. And when you saw that car strike my daughter, you weren't witnessing a drunk driving accident. You were filming the end of an attempted rape that became vehicular homicide. Tyler scrambled backward on his hands and knees, his face twisted with panic. He's lying. Check the police reports. They never found any evidence of what? Li Xiaoming's voice cut like a blade. Evidence that you'd arranged to meet her? Evidence that you'd been grooming a 17-year-old girl? Evidence that you killed her to hide your crime? He smiled with terrible gentleness. Marcus's video was the only evidence, and Marcus kept it secret for 20 years. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. Not just complicit in covering up vehicular manslaughter, complicit in covering up attempted rape and murder. The teenager whose death he'd carried like a stone in his chest hadn't been a random victim. She'd been prey, stalked and cornered by the same man who'd gone on to kill 7 others. Elena, Marcus breathed, thinking of his wife's message, her trust, her belief that he was still the good man she'd married. What would she say if she knew? What would she think of the man who'd spent 2 decades protecting a serial killer? His phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Elena. The text was from an unknown number. Mr. Chen, this is Dr. Patricia Williams at BC Cancer Vancouver. We need to discuss your wife's treatment options immediately. Please call as soon as possible. Marcus's hands shook as he read the message. Treatment options. Not good news. Never good news when doctors needed to discuss options immediately. Ah, Li Xiaoming observed, watching Marcus's face. Complications? The word hung in the air like a threat. Marcus understood now that nothing in his life was coincidence anymore. Elena's cancer, his financial struggles, even this job on Jackie's set. Li Xiaoming had been orchestrating everything, positioning all the pieces for this moment. What do you want? Marcus asked, his voice breaking. Li Xiaoming smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. Not warmth, satisfaction. The satisfaction of a man who'd spent 20 years preparing for this conversation. I want justice for my daughter, Marcus. I want Tyler Wade to pay for what he did to Li Wei and to the others. And I want you to understand that the choice you make in the next 60 seconds will determine whether your wife lives or dies. He gestured toward Marcus's broken phone. So choose carefully. Marcus stared at the broken phone in his trembling hands, Li Xiaoming's ultimatum echoing in the cavernous soundstage. 60 seconds. Elena's life hanging in the balance. 20 years of buried truth demanding its due. You orchestrated this, Marcus said, his voice hollow with realization. Elena's cancer treatment being denied. My financial problems. Even getting me this job on Jackie's set. Li Xiaoming's expression remained impassive. I simply influenced certain variables. Insurance companies can be remarkably flexible about coverage decisions when the right pressure is applied. And production companies are always eager to hire experienced crew at reduced rates. The clinical detachment in his voice was more terrifying than any threat. Marcus understood now that he wasn't dealing with a grieving father seeking justice. He was facing something far more dangerous. A man who'd spent 2 decades transforming grief into a precision instrument, reshaping reality itself to serve his purpose. The experimental treatments Elena needs, Marcus whispered. You're the one blocking them. I'm the one who can authorize them, Li Xiaoming corrected. The distinction matters, just as the distinction between Tyler Wade facing justice and Tyler Wade disappearing into witness protection matters. Choices, Marcus. Everything comes down to choices. Tyler Wade had crawled to the far wall, his body pressed against fake concrete, as if he could merge with it entirely. The cocky actor who'd humiliated Marcus hours earlier was gone, replaced by something animal and desperate. Please, he whimpered. I have children. I have a family. So did Li Wei, Li Xiaoming replied without looking at him. So did Maria Santos. So did all the others whose names you probably don't even remember. Marcus felt the weight of decades crushing down on him. The accident on his last film. 3 dead stunt performers because he'd been distracted, haunted by the secret he carried. Elena's diagnosis coming just as their savings ran out. The slow dissolution of his reputation, his relationships, his sense of himself as a good man. All of it connected, all of it orchestrated. "You destroyed my career," he said. The accident was your conscience eating you alive," Li Xiaoming interrupted. "You think I sabotaged your rigging, paid off your safety crew? No, Marcus. You did that yourself. A man can only carry so much blood before his hands start shaking." The truth of it hit Marcus like a physical blow. The investigation had found no mechanical failure, no negligence, no external cause for the accident that killed 3 people and ended his career. Just human error. Just Marcus Chen, legendary stunt coordinator, making a mistake so basic it defied explanation. Except now, it didn't defy explanation at all. His phone buzzed again. "Another message from Dr. Williams, Mr. Chen. Your wife's condition has deteriorated. We need your consent for emergency procedures. Time is critical." "Elena," Marcus gasped, but Li Xiaoming held up a hand. "Your wife is stable for now. Dr. Williams works for a medical consortium that receives significant funding from my shipping company. Her messages are, let's call them motivational. But Elena's condition is real, Marcus, as real as her need for treatments that cost more than you'll earn in 5 years." The manipulation was so elegant, so complete, that Marcus felt a sick admiration for its craftsmanship. 20 years of patient preparation, of moving pieces across a board so vast Marcus had never even seen the game being played. "What exactly do you want me to do?" Marcus asked. Li Xiaoming reached into his jacket and withdrew a tablet, its screen showing a familiar interface. "Your original footage from Hong Kong. The unedited version you've kept hidden all these years. I want you to upload it to this platform, a secure server that will simultaneously release it to every major news network, social media platform, and law enforcement agency in North America." Marcus looked at the tablet, then at Tyler Wade cowering against the wall. "And if I do that?" "Elena receives the best cancer treatment money can buy. You receive enough money to never work again if you choose. Tyler Wade faces justice through proper legal channels. Trial, conviction, life in prison, where even his money can't protect him from other inmates who don't appreciate child killers. And if I don't?" Li Xiaoming's smile was winter incarnate. Elena's medical care becomes complicated. Tragic mix-ups with medications. Computer errors that delay treatments. The sort of systemic failures that kill cancer patients every day in overworked hospitals. The tablet felt like lead in Marcus's hands. One button, one upload. One choice that would either damn him or finally free him from 20 years of complicity. "The irony," Li Xiaoming continued softly, "is that you always believed you were protecting people by keeping this secret. But the only person you were really protecting was yourself, your reputation, your career. Your comfortable illusion that you were still a good man." Marcus looked around the soundstage, at Jackie Chan's carefully neutral expression, at the crew members who'd melted away like ghosts, at Tyler Wade's broken form against the wall, all of them waiting to see what choice he would make, the choice he should have made 20 years ago. Marcus drove through Vancouver's pre-dawn streets 6 months later, the city still wrapped in that particular Pacific Northwest darkness that felt more like deep water than night. His hands were steady on the wheel, steadier than they'd been in 20 years. The radio played softly, a jazz station Elena had programmed before her last treatment cycle. The news had long since moved on from Tyler Wade's arrest and conviction. The trial had been swift, almost anticlimactic after the initial media frenzy. Wade's legal team had tried everything, challenging the video's authenticity, claiming jurisdictional issues, arguing statute of limitations. None of it mattered. 7 families finally had their answers, and justice wore the patient face of inevitability. Marcus pulled into the hospital parking garage, the same one he'd visited weekly for months now. But today was different. Today was the last time. Elena was sitting up in bed when he arrived, her hair growing back in silver wisps that caught the morning light streaming through the window. She looked fragile still, translucent in the way of people who dance too close to death's door, but her eyes were clear, focused, alive. "Dr. Williams says I can go home today," she said, her voice stronger than it had been since the diagnosis. "Clean scans, Marcus. They can't find any trace of it." Marcus sat heavily in the chair beside her bed, the same chair he'd occupied through weeks of chemo, radiation, experimental treatments that had cost more than he'd ever imagined possible. The money from Li Jiaoming's shipping empire had made it all possible. Blood money, perhaps, but it had bought Elena's life. "I know," he said simply. Elena studied his face with the careful attention of someone who'd learned to read the subtle signs of hope and despair. "You've been different since that night on the set. Quieter, but also cleaner somehow, like something that was eating you from the inside finally stopped." Marcus took her hand, feeling the bones beneath skin that was still paper-thin but growing stronger each day. He'd told her some of it, about the video, about Tyler Wade, about choices made in darkness finally brought to light, but not everything. Not about Li Jiaoming's orchestration, or the 20 years of manipulation that had led to Elena's illness being weaponized against his conscience. Some truths were burdens meant to be carried alone. "I made mistakes," he said, "kept secrets I should have shared, but I'm done with that now." Through the window, Vancouver was waking up, construction crews heading to film sets, coffee shops opening, the daily rhythm of a city that had somehow become home again. Marcus could see the mountains beyond the urban sprawl, their peaks catching the first real light of dawn. His phone buzzed. A text from Jackie Chan's production coordinator, next project starting in the fall. Interested in returning as stunt coordinator? The insurance finally cleared? Marcus showed Elena the message. She smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her in months. "Are you ready for that? Going back to what you were before?" Before. Marcus considered the weight of that word. Before the accident, before the secret, before 20 years of slow dissolution and carefully orchestrated consequences. But there was no going back, only moving forward with whatever remained of himself after the truth had burned away everything false. "I'm ready for something," he said. "Maybe not what I was before, but something new." Elena squeezed his hand with surprising strength. "Good, because I want to see you work again. The real you, not the ghost you've been carrying around." A knock at the door interrupted them. Dr. Williams entered with discharge papers and final instructions, her professional demeanor warm but efficient. She'd saved Elena's life with treatments that pushed the boundaries of medical science, funded by money that had flowed through offshore accounts and charitable foundations connected to Li Jiaoming's empire. "Take care of her," Dr. Williams told Marcus, as Elena signed the last forms. "And take care of yourself. You've both been through more than most people could handle." As they gathered Elena's few belongings, Marcus thought about Li Jiaoming, about whether the man had found peace in finally seeing justice for his daughter, or if 20 years of patient revenge had hollowed him out beyond redemption. They'd never spoken again after that night on the soundstage, but Marcus occasionally saw news of charitable donations from unnamed benefactors to victims' rights organizations, always in amounts that seemed precisely calculated to match the scope of old grief. Elena leaned against him as they walked slowly toward the elevator, her weight slight but real, anchored in the present moment rather than floating in the uncertain space between life and death where she'd existed for so long. "Marcus," she said softly as the elevator descended toward the parking garage and their waiting life, "I'm proud of you. For finally letting go of whatever you were carrying. For choosing truth." Marcus nodded, watching the floor numbers count down to ground level. Outside, Vancouver stretched toward mountains and ocean, a city of second chances built on the edge of wilderness. Somewhere in that urban sprawl, 7 families slept easier knowing their loved one's killer was finally behind bars. Somewhere else, a powerful man named Li Jiaoming continued his patient work of reshaping the world one careful influence at a time. And in a hospital elevator moving toward morning light, Marcus Chen held his wife's hand and felt, for the first time in 20 years, like a man who might deserve forgiveness.